I had gone through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I was a certified holistic health coach. I was the person who was juicing green juices, celery juice since 2015. And what this meant in this moment was a complete dissolution of my identity. Because to me, I was a wellness girl and I got cancer at age 36. And so it it became clear to me that there was something so much bigger than that at play.
So the big question is this. We know spontaneous remissions and so-called miracle cures exist. We also know they aren't so spontaneous after all. I'm living proof of this, having cured my quote-unquote incurable illness. There's something to how this happens. So how do we, as humans with chronic symptoms, tap into this so-called miraculous healing capacity? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Dr. Erin Hayford, and welcome to the Sacred Illness Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, just my standard medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The content should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. I'm here today with Natalie Emmer. She's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she's going to be talking about her journey with Adenoid Cystic Carcinoma, which is a rare cancer, and also Hashimoto's disease, which probably a lot of you are familiar with, but that's a thyroid condition. Natalie's going to walk us through her process with that, everything she learned, where she is now. Welcome, Natalie. I'm so excited to have you and to have our conversation today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erin. Me too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's jump in. Where does this story start with you or for you with your health journey?
Sure. So it's interesting because I feel like there are multiple potential starting points as you actually reflect on your full life and what might have contributed to an illness. But I would say I'll start in 2015, 2016. I had noticed a small nodule, and I'm pointing here to my neck. My cancer was on a salivary gland here. So I noticed what felt like a grain of rice or a lymph node. I scheduled an appointment with an ENT. I was living in Chicago at the time. And we did a full scope of my sinus area because I had had some sinus issues in the past. And then this, whatever it might have been on my throat. At the time, I was a contractor on a creative team at Walgreens corporate, and I was a writer, and I had terrible insurance as a contracted employee. And so the ENT suggested that I get a T scan, but he was not overly concerned. And so I was like, I'm just going to kind of wait it out because he shared nothing about what it could be. And just really his concern was so low. So fast forward to 2023, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I noticed that the nodule had gotten a little bit bigger, and I would get like a very dull pain occasionally. And I think I had started to notice that even prior to being pregnant. If I would enjoy a glass of red wine, anything really acidic or like the tannins in wine, whatever would make you salivate. And once in a while, I would mention something to my husband like, oh, I think I really should get this looked at again. And then being pregnant with my daughter, I really believe that during pregnancy, you are a stronger channel to the other side, to your higher self. You're more in tune with your body. I would say so. My daughter was my second. My son, I had a few years prior. And that was the first time pregnancy when I really started to listen to my body and be in tune with my body. I can talk a little bit more later about where else this may have started because it really was a disconnect with my body for most of my life, including my adult life. And so as I was pregnant with her, I was meditating every day and I got very clear downloads that I needed to get this looked like, have her go through postpartum and get this looked at. And so I heeded that message and I ended up scheduling an appointment with an ENT. We did a CT scan. It confirmed that this was a tumor it didn't even register to me at the time that it could be cancer. But it's interesting too, because there were times where cancer came to mind. I never spoke it out loud because I've always believed our thoughts manifest and our words are so powerful. And so even to my husband, I never said the C word out loud. And so I moved forward with the needle biopsy and received the news that it was inconclusive. So not cancer, but not cancer. I already had my surgery scheduled. I really just had this gut feeling that I wanted it out of me. I felt like whatever it was inhibiting my body's ability to be its most vibrant. I had surgery at the end of 2023 on December 30th. Then I spoke with my ENT, my surgeon, following the surgery, and he basically gave me three options. One, it would be a benign tumor. Most salivary gland tumors are. Two, it would be a low-grade cancer. Or three, it would be adenoid cystic carcinoma, and we'll talk about that if we need to.
Wow.
And so that was January 2nd, 2024. And 2 days later, on the 4th, he called me and said, Ms. Emmer, I have some unfortunate news. It is adenoid cystic carcinoma. Would you like to get your husband? And I'm sitting in my office playing with my then 6-month-old baby, Lily, and wow, like just kind of like entered a tunnel of disbelief and grief and lots of other emotions as I processed that with my husband. So that's kind of the origin story. And there's so much more that can be said, but I'll pass the mic back over to you.
Thank you for sharing that. I just got teary-eyed because I never have received a cancer diagnosis. So hearing people talk about it, I just put myself in your shoes and can only imagine how you feel in that moment, especially being a mother with a new baby. It's unfathomable how your world must change.
It's something, unless you've gone through that diagnosis, it's not able to be compared or comprehended by anyone else, truly.
Yep.
I know that I have had people in my life prior to this diagnosis who received cancer diagnoses, and you're there for them. I consider myself a very strong empath, and so putting myself in their shoes too, but truly there's just so many emotions and your world really does turn upside down.
It's like having a baby. These experiences that unless you do it, you can't explain it to anyone else. And even then it's different for every person in their own way. So how does this lead to where you are now? Because obviously a lot changed and a lot happened between. I didn't realize it was so recent. It's only been 2 years. So
Yes.
still busy 2 years you've had in your journey. So
Yes.
tell us what
Okay.
happened next.
Totally. So I am night and day a different person. I mean, the core essence of me that was showing through then is obviously still here with me now, like my most authentic self. But I had to go through, I entered this portal of grief and a mix of research and questioning. I would go into the shower, which is like a portal for me. I tend to have conversations with the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call that creator force in the shower. And what came through so clear was what you do over this next year is so important. And I didn't really know what that meant other than what my intuition led me to. My initial response was learning everything I could about cancer. I already had a very holistic background and approach to my health and wellness. And so I sought out sources that were in that sphere, like the metabolic approach to cancer. There's a doctor, Dr. Lee Connolly, wrote The Cancer Revolution. Her book is fantastic for somebody who recently received a cancer diagnosis. And I just learned everything that I could. And my immediate reaction too is, okay, what can I do physically? What can I be eating? How can I clean up my environment? Like really thinking about that sphere of potential influence. And then as I continued down this road, more and more opened up in the emotional, energetic, spiritual spheres for me. Prior to my diagnosis, I had gone through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I was a certified holistic health coach. I was the person who was juicing green juices, celery juice since 2015. And what this meant in this moment was a complete dissolution of my identity.
Wow.
Because to me, I was a wellness girl and I got cancer at age 36. And so it it became clear to me that there was something so much bigger than that at play. One of the first things I said to my husband following my diagnosis was, I need a therapist. This manifested in my throat chakra. I have not been expressing my truth. I am not in alignment. And those all intuitive downloads that came through to me. And it just became so clear to me that my soul, like I've known for so long the potential that I hold and that I'm here on a mission and that there's something that I have to accomplish in this lifetime. And I just wasn't listening. I didn't know how to put one foot in front of the other with that. And the cancer diagnosis then became this fast track toward living in alignment and really starting to ask the right questions to get back in touch with my body and my soul and kind of changing to a like mindset. Because even though I believed in this idea of manifesting and how we speak to ourselves is so important, I realized, well, I haven't really been following my own medicine there, so to speak.
It's so interesting how that can be. I feel like I've caught myself in that so many times. Like, even points I harp on with my clients over and over again. I just posted about sending love and gratitude to your whole body, but especially the parts that produce symptoms because they're doing something even more important for you. And as I was writing it, I was like, I don't even do this. And I tried doing it. I was like, this is so uncomfortable. I think that just really highlights the difference between cognitively understanding something. And when we cognitively understand something, I think there's this assumption that it means we are doing it. Such a key difference between knowing it and actually doing it, obviously. So I love how you started with that physical side of things, because that's where a lot of us do start. How do I clean up the world around me? Like what I'm eating, how much I'm drinking, if I'm moving my body, what's in my environment, all those things. And then it does inevitably lead us to that. What's next? Okay, I did all that. What's next? What's the next layer? Which is that mind, body, spirit piece. And it sounds like you said that was already, part of your worldview, part of your work, but it was starting to then just walk the talk, starting to apply that to your life. One of the things you said in your notes that you sent me was it was really about cultivating, and maybe this came later, but cultivating this sense of curiosity, asking questions and turning toward your illness versus away from it, which I think is what we're taught is push it away, suppress it, cut it out, do whatever you need to do to get rid of it or ignore it. But for you, it sounds like it was this different approach of how do I start to listen to it? So tell us about that part, the spiritual, mental, emotional side of the journey. Where did that take you?
Totally. So I remember distinctly, probably in February. So this is a month into my world turning upside down. I would have a few days would be fine, and then I would be more sad or Googling things and just end up in this really dark place. And at one point, I remember saying out loud, God, why have I had to suffer so much in this lifetime? And in that moment, I really caught myself in this victim consciousness of life is just happening to me. I've had to go through these tough experiences. To shed a little light on that, I had an eating disorder from age 18 to 26. So I was anorexic and bulimic. And that's where I'm talking about being so disconnected from my body, not listening. Like I think about all of the times my body was saying, I'm hungry, I'm starving. And I didn't listen because, that's like a whole nother thing that we could discuss and I won't go there. But, and then too, like the bulimia and not being able to really digest life, digest my emotions. So it was like the eating disorder became a form of escapism in a way. So that was this darker period in my life. Now here I am 10 years later, experiencing this and questioning why. So rather than just stop there, I really did start to get curious and ask those questions, those hard questions, and kind of follow the intuition to different books or different spiritual teachers and learning more and more about the soul's journey and why we come up against challenge in our life. We could talk about karma and the karmic debts that we owe potentially from other lifetimes. What came really clear to me is coming out of my eating disorder, I remember feeling like I could hear the call. Like I would listen to Wayne Dyer and Gabby Bernstein were both like spiritual gurus to me and helped me to work through some of what I was feeling challenged by. And at that time too, I really was disconnected from my spirituality and from any type of faith. And through them, I could feel the call. Like I knew that was something that seemed so true to me. Just this idea of the universe has your back type of thinking. And instead of really pursuing where that could have taken me, I started partying and doing drugs and drinking every weekend. And I think that too was how I translated to a new form of escapism, and then continued that through my later 20s until I got pregnant with my son. And then, there's a whole complete identity shift, and you go through that new phase of motherhood, and truly you have an ego death and you become this new person. I would say that happened with both of my children, and then especially following this cancer diagnosis. And so it truly was like this ego death, this dissolution of my identity, and then awakening to what is the most true within me. And I just started asking questions. What did I love to do as a little girl? What brings me the most joy? What brought me the most joy? What do I feel I am really here to do? And the answers would just come through, and I would sit at my meditation pillow and I would ask these questions and just allow whatever to come through to come through. And then as I opened up more and more, I started looking into energy healing, and I was in a Reiki session. This was kind of a turning point in my healing journey too, where the Reiki healer, during our intake, we had a great discussion. And she said to me, "Your daughter is a medium." And I looked at her like, that's very interesting, because my daughter Lily was born at 11:11
Wow.
p.m. and she was almost in call. Like I gave birth to my water bag, and
my
like
gosh.
I had a water balloon essentially,
Yeah.
and it just kind of like dissolved, and then she came and it was 11:11. And I thought that was auspicious and felt so right, because I felt so in tune with my intuition and with her through my pregnancy. And then the Reiki healer, who's also a medium, looked at me probably 30 seconds later and she said, "You're a medium." And I thought that was very interesting as well, because growing up, one thing that I tuned into as I was asking these questions is how much I was really into kind of witchy things. And I always felt very connected to the land, to nature. And I had a very vivid imagination, still do very vivid dreams through all of my life. So I'm in this healing session and I felt really safe. I had been trying to connect with my spirit team for a while in my meditations. And I realized that I had this subconscious block because I was fearful of who might come through. And the Reiki healer really helped me to feel comfortable and safe. And in that healing, my grandmother, who I'd never met, came through. And I won't get into everything that she shared, but it was a profound healing experience. And then I had other relatives who came through. My grandfather came through and he told me about a coffee cup. After the session, I called my grandma and she told me about the coffee cup that broke in her kitchen the week prior. And I was like, oh, like, okay, wait, like maybe this is actually, there's something here. And so not that that opened me up fully to mediumship, because there's a lot that you need to consider when you're doing that type of work. There are pros and cons to it, but it definitely opened me up to this idea that there is so much more to our human experience here in Earth School. And we all have this opportunity to connect and to awaken that within us. You can call it psychic abilities, and not to think of it as psychic in the way of the psychic who's telling the future, but really it's this innate wisdom connection that we all have to something bigger than us. It was such a profound experience and loving experience. Like I was streaming tears. And I've had since many meditations where I've connected, and it is just this overwhelming sense of love And it's a big part of my message because I want people to access this for themselves because it really makes life so much more fun and exciting and like, wow.
Yes, I agree. I've been on a similar journey in the last few years as well, and just recognizing how gives life meaning, and it just makes everything make sense. It helps it fall into a place of meaning and purpose versus meaninglessness. And like you said, the victim mindset. Why is this happening? Why is this always happening to me? Life is so unfair. And it just changes the paradigm completely to where everything has meaning. Everything is ultimately working to move you in a certain direction, which is always toward your highest self, always toward your purpose in whatever that is. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that people come to in these journeys is they take, it's like making lemonade out of lemons kind of thing, right? They take what is characterized as the worst possible thing in our culture. We think of illness and especially cancer as the worst thing that could ever happen to you. And everyone on this podcast is saying, actually, it's what gave me my entire life back or created the life that I was always supposed to have. And I think that is the most powerful message that we could ever share about illness. And to me, that's exactly what illness is. It's this wake-up call that's saying, you're not on your path. This is not who you're supposed to be. We're given free will. We're allowed to meander through life, but life still has an agenda, right? And it's still going to be like, okay, hold on, stop going that way. You need to actually go this way. And so there are these little bumpers, right? Like we can wander down the path, but there's these little bumpers that are going to try to get us to move in a certain direction. And sometimes illness is more of a big smack versus a little soft bumper. But either way, it's a wake-up call.
Hey, Sacred Illness listeners, Dr. Erin here. If the stories on this podcast have stirred something in you, if you're hearing these conversations and thinking, that feels true for me too, then this message is for you. You know by now that illness is not a random malfunction. It's a message. It's a call. It's a sacred, if not difficult, invitation to remember who you really are. But hearing the paradigm is one thing. Walking the path yourself is another. Where do you even begin? How do you translate that knowing into a daily practice? How do you move from listening to the message of your symptoms to actually understanding it step by step and learning how to heal with it? That is exactly why I created the Sacred Illness community. It's a living, guided container for those who are ready to answer the call of their own body. This is where the philosophy becomes a map, where you move from insight to integration. Inside, you'll find my full Sacred Illness blueprint. This is a 9-chapter journey that guides you through the mythic stages of illness as initiation. It weaves together the somatic education, nervous system science, and deep self-inquiry we talk about here on the podcast. But it's more than a course. It's a community. It's a place for growth, not just commiseration. You'll have access to live events, somatic yoga, intuitive eating courses, and a library of EFT and self-hypnosis tracks, and a forum to connect with others who are speaking this same language of the body. This is for the listener who's done searching for answers and is ready to begin the real journey of transformation. Membership is just $37 a month, and you can cancel anytime. And as a thank you for listening to this podcast, you can use coupon code PODCAST, that's all caps, PODCAST, at checkout for 20% off your first month. If you're ready to get started, check out the link below in the show notes or go to mysacredillness.com, enter the coupon code, and get started today. This is your next step. The path is here, and it's ready for you when you're ready to take it. Okay, let's get back to the podcast.
In the notes you sent me, this idea of co-creating, which is what it sounds like you're now doing, where it's this conversation. It's not just like, how so many of us, like you said, live in our heads and have this ego-driven life of this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is how it's supposed to be, and this is what life is, and we just like plow ahead. And instead, it sounds like there's this more gentle flow in your life now, where there's this ongoing conversation. And that intuition, I think, is that bridge between the physical and the spiritual, right? It's that inner knowing that tends to push us in a certain direction. And so is that correct? What I'm assuming is there's this ongoing conversation now that is directing your life.
Yes, I would absolutely. And I had been meditating for almost a decade at this point. My practice has become so much more sacred to me over the last year and a half, just because of that ongoing communication. Like before, it was almost like I was meditating, and it was really just to calm my mind and bring more peace and groundedness to my body and my day. And now my meditation so often are, sacred conversations or connecting with my third eye and seeing what wants to come through, I will ask questions. I'll pull angel cards and then meditate on what messages want to come through. And it is this ongoing conversation. It just became so clear to me through this healing journey that the conversations that I was having with my guides or with source, with my higher self, were leading me to exactly where I meant to go. And like this remembrance, this soul remembrance kind of showing up as my most authentic self. And it's been pretty wild how it's been confirmed by things like human design and astrology. The intuitive downloads that I received are perfectly aligned with the stars. And I think what's so interesting, and I haven't given this a ton of thought just yet, but it's been coming through more and more, is how as we, like for me, for instance, I'm a Pisces sun and a Cancer moon and a Sagittarius rising. And there is a ton of language in my chart that points to mysticism and psychic gifts and spirituality. And that really being a part of the calling and being a healer and being a teacher. And these are all things that I discovered that I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is my message. This is what I'm here to awaken in other women, particularly, are my main clients. And just like empowering women to get in touch with their intuition and their body and create the most what I call inspired life. And by inspired, you're connected to self, you're connected to source, to spirit. So it really has been such a beautiful journey and a coming home
Yes.
to who I am. And what also comes with that strengthening intuition is just like this knowing. Like I remember at one point in, I think it was July of 2024. So 6 months in, 7 months in, I was on my meditation pillow and I had that surrender moment where I was kneeling, praying, and I said, God, please just show me the way and I will be a channel for your love and service. And this was from somebody who 4 years ago, 3 years ago, wouldn't even use the word God. I always used universe. And what came through was a feeling in my entire body of, I got you. Just put one foot in front of the other. Take the aligned action toward what you're seeing as your highest self and your mission, and you're going to succeed. It just is like this feeling of complete safety. That doesn't mean it's hard. Like definitely will come across my own fears or insecurities about putting myself out there in the way that I know that I need to. And like I said, I really do feel like my soul is here with a pretty big mission. And I don't even know truly what that fully looks like yet, but I'm just continuing to take action toward it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Right. I'm right there with you. Like it's not easy. I think it's easy in the sense that once you know what it is, the clarity of that is helpful. Like you have a compass, but if you're on a ship and you have a compass, it doesn't mean there's going to be just smooth sailing. You know the destination, but there's still going to be storms and waves and all the things in between. I think as both of us probably are learning, all of the storms that we encounter on the path are part of it too. Like we're saying, it's part of the next layer or the thing we have to understand. It's that wounded healer idea of you are the most potent healer or guide or however you want to refer to it when you go through it yourself. It doesn't translate the same, right? Unless you walk it yourself and then you're speaking their language, you're on their level and you can say, I've been through this and now I can tell you what I did to get through it versus like, this is what the book told me to tell you to do.
Absolutely. As soon as I was diagnosed and exploring what was coming next for me, I had heard the call of becoming a coach and guide and in the past. That's why I pursued IIN. And a part of me just didn't fully believe myself to be ready to carry that fully. And something about receiving a cancer diagnosis and then doing the work that I've done to get to where I am now, it's been a lot, right? I've explored physically, mentally, spiritually, energetically, a lot of different parts of me through those different lenses. And now I feel so much more empowered to lead, to speak because of what I've been through. I really walk the talk. And it's so interesting because I work with women now and they come to me and they tell me their stories. And it's wild to me how the universe puts us together because it's like parallel track.
Yeah.
Me, 5 years ago or years ago or wherever it might be. And it's so just fulfilling to work with these women and help them to see the light that they have within.
Absolutely. Yes. You had said this in your notes and it gave me goosebumps. It was this phrase, radical alignment. Can you tell us about that? Because I feel like that's what we're talking about now.
Yeah, totally. So as I was questioning everything in my life, I knew that I needed to get back into alignment, whatever the hell that meant for me. I really believe that alignment is going to look different for everyone. However, when you're not in alignment, what's going to happen? You have misalignment, and that is going to potentially manifest dis-ease in your body. Whereas alignment is going to bring health, vibrancy, joy, radiance, and really connect to purpose too. And so alignment is a term that is tossed around everywhere in the wellness space and spirituality space. And I liked the idea of alignment. And what came through to me, also most likely in a meditation or at some point in all of my thinking that I did, is this idea of radical alignment, which is not just one facet. So if you're really aligned in the way you eat and treat your body, or you're really aligned in your career and you know that you're living your mission, but you eat like shit, or there's like this self-awareness that comes with radical alignment and this curiosity that comes with radical alignment, where you are truly you're eating in alignment for your best, highest self. You are speaking in alignment for your best, highest self. You are on a soul track of purpose and mission and service and feeling truly aligned and lit up from within with whatever it is that you are bringing to the world and to your work and to others. And it goes beyond just any one of those facets feeling aligned, because there are times where it's like, even when I work with clients too, oh, I feel really aligned in my health, or I feel really aligned in my relationships. But my work, I'm so stressed and I just feel so unfulfilled. And so radical alignment is getting into alignment in all of those different spheres.
Yes. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges arise, because there's a lot of grief in that process, at least for me, because it's
Totally.
letting go of a lot of things, right? And one of them I wrote about recently was letting go of, I'm from Maine originally, and it was letting go of that as home, because my family's been in Maine for 300 plus years. We've been there for a long time. And it's this ancestral home. All my family's there. A lot of my friends are there. And so that was part of what I went through the last few years, was this deep grief of letting that go, because it's not home for me. Whenever I go there, I just feel sort of dead inside and uninspired. And it's just, it's a beautiful place, but it doesn't make me come alive. And so I was doing this audit on all these different levels of life, and that was a major one. I don't thrive here. This is not home. I have to leave. I have to go somewhere else. And so it brings up a lot of grief to let go of what can feel like such a core identity. Like, I'm a Mainer. I'm from Maine. I'll always be from Maine.
Yeah.
That's my family story, right? And to let that go is heartbreaking, but it's liberating, And so I think that a lot of us have a hard time with that radical alignment for that reason.
I just have to say that I was getting chills and almost tears coming through as you were sharing that, because I kid you not, just this morning, I was thinking about being in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My husband and I have been talking about moving potentially to Austin, Texas, because the company that he works for has their main headquarters there. And I won't go too deep, but I've been asking Spirit for a lot of signs around this. And one sign that I had asked for was a Texas license plate.
Yes.
The day that I asked, I was leaving my driveway to pick up my son from school. There was a car parked in front of our home that we've never seen before. Texas license plate.
I have goosebumps. Oh
I
gosh.
know, right? I shared this on my Instagram. I was like, I kind of feel like I want to throw up. Yeah, I'm moving. Like, my family is here in the Milwaukee area. I have 2 young kids. Gigi and Papa are here, and cousins. But what has been coming through is that for me to step into my highest self, and potentially my husband to step into his highest self, it might need to be somewhere else.
Yep.
And if we truly want that, I'm on such a track of who am I really, and how can I step into what I call it's the inspired self version of me. it might take a big move like that, but then to put yourself in environments that you truly thrive. So I literally was asking spirit for more signs, and the fact that you just brought that up in conversation is like so clear. It couldn't
Yeah.
get more clear. But yes, as far as grief goes, it's something that I still experience. You know, it comes and goes in waves where I felt I really grieved my old life.
Yep.
For the first 3 months, especially, I felt like I just entered like this kind of black hole. It was my dark night of the soul. And just grieving who I used to be. And now being in this in between of who you once were and who you are becoming.
Yeah.
And that is the dark night, right? You're figuring it out. And as much as it can be overwhelming and isolating and a feeling of just heaviness, it also, when you come out the other side, is just this feeling of true vibrance in this new self. But yes, that's not to say that I don't have days where I allow my thoughts to get the best of me and go to one of those dark places again.
Right.
I really do my best not to Google or stay up to date on any research around adenoid cystic carcinoma because of the nature of the cancer. But I really do feel like as long as I continue to show up in this light and really heal from all of these different angles, I will be in my best health for many years to come.
Absolutely. Yes, that's my belief as well. Obviously, we all will die at some point, and who knows what it will be that takes us there. But in the meantime, when illness strikes in our 30s, in our 20s, in our 40s, in our 50s, at any point in the journey, it is a wake up call. And as long as we're answering the call, it's this active surrender of like, okay, I'm listening. I'm just going to trust that what comes from here on is part of it because I'm listening in this different way. I'm radically aligning my life in this different way. And as long as we're on track, it's just trusting that what's coming is part of that aligned life. Yeah. So tell us what is going on with the cancer, because you said it sounds like it's a potentially serious diagnosis, right?
Yeah. So it can be a very aggressive cancer. It is a cancer that has a higher propensity to return. So I did go through with radiation, proton beam radiation, which was such a hard decision for me to make, being of the holistic alternative mindset. Strongly believe that the body will heal when given the right inputs, mind, body, spirit, and ultimately just feeling as we do in the Western medical system, we need to make a decision very quickly. And I milked it out as long as I could. But I did make that decision to go through with radiation, which was the hardest thing probably that I've ever experienced in my life, head, neck, and throat radiation. My mouth was full of ulcers. I had a very hard time swallowing, eating. It was so painful. I did the very minimum. I actually ended a week early because I was in a lot of pain and I really wanted to go the most conservative route possible. My radiation oncologist signed off on it. And so I did 25 rounds total. So that's 5 weeks. And with that, I'm cancer free. And so I still have scans and I'm in this place of murkiness, even on returning for scans, because I do believe that I'm doing all of the best things possible. And it's like, what is it necessarily going to show me at this point, especially so soon? The cancer is very slow growing. I was fortunate it was caught at stage 1 and the margins were clear. So it will invade lymph nodes and your neural tracts, actually. A lot of people with this cancer won't know they have it. I was fortunate because I could feel the tumor, 1.2 or 3 centimeter tumor on my salivary gland, and they just removed the entire gland. But people will start to feel like tingling, numbness somewhere in their head, neck, or face region. And that lets you know that it's already potentially started to do some damage on the nerves, and then it can progress a little bit quicker. But I was very fortunate with the type. It was the most benign form.
Yeah.
And yes, it was the clear margins and no neural or lymph invasion. So very fortunate there. Stage 1. And it's gone. And so now it's just making those lifestyle shifts that I've been speaking about. And to me, being in alignment and really expressing my truth. Like I believe that I'm here in this lifetime to express, and there's a lot that I've held in for a lot of my life. And so now, whatever that looks like, whether it's doing the somatic work and emotional work, solo or sharing my story and empowering others through my voice.
It's so beautiful. And I understand that thing about going back for scans because what you're doing is what needed to be done or what your illness was pointing you toward. I appreciate your capacity to do that both and to straddle both worlds because it is really hard. It's so hard when we are strongly convicted and really do know at the core what's going on. But Western medicine has its place. I think people have a hard time who are really rooted in the holistic world to bridge that gap. But yeah, it's life-saving and life-changing in its own way. And my whole thing has always been both and versus either or, right? It's never just do this or just do this. I think the most magic can be in a combination of the two when that combination is needed.
Yes, totally agree. I really appreciate that about your work and the message you're sharing.
Yeah, because that's part of what this work is following your intuition, following your story, not following some algorithm that says when you get this diagnosis, you do this, or in the alternative world, you do this. It's about saying, these are all the different options I have. When I sit with them and feel them in my body, what makes sense for me and piecing that all together. Because it's when we get dogmatic and stuck, that's part of the problem is that we get too rigid, essentially. So I love this whole story, this whole trajectory that you've been sharing with us, just this whole idea of shifting out of the victim mindset, shifting out of this kind of life you were living, this person you used to be, and how this was this radical wake-up call for you. And one of the questions I like to ask my guests at the end of the show, who is your illness inviting you to become? Who did it invite you to become? I know you've already shared a lot of that, but what did your illness open up for you and ask you to step into?
I really believe my illness invited me to step into my full power and potential. And that is the knowing that was already coming through of I am here to be a wise guide to others, to empower others, to truly bring others up and help them to see the power and potential within themselves to be the most vibrant, inspired version of themselves.
Amazing. Yes. And tell us where we can find the work that you're doing. How can people find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on my website. It is NatalieEmmer.com, NatalieEmmer.com. And then on Instagram, I am at Natalie.Emmer.
Awesome. And I'll link everything down below too for people listening who want to check out Natalie's work, follow her on Instagram. I'm so grateful and so appreciative of you and your willingness to come on here and share your story. I think it's such a gift for people to be generous with your time and your story. This is medicine, just what you share. And I think everyone who listens to this podcast takes something different away. And that's feeding into that mission of you're going to hear a bunch of different stories and a bunch of different approaches, but it's that core message, which is your core message, which is just to listen and to trust and to follow that wisdom of your body and know that it's trying to get your attention is this invitation of co-creation of listen to me, follow me, let's see what we can do together. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your time and thank you for sharing your journey with us. I'm so very appreciative of you and all that you're doing now in the world as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Erin. And yes, to all of your listeners, you have all of the answers within, and just ask the question, how is this happening for me? Why is this happening for me?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. If you find this information shared here inspirational and educational, please share it with those you think would benefit from this work. To take this work deeper yourself, check out our website, www.aurorasomatic.com, where you can explore our coaching, community, and course options. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel where new content is coming out all the time, intended to inspire, awaken, and help you deepen your relationship with yourself, your life, and your world. We'll see you next time.